So you may have stumbled on this video questioning why a Christian would review Scream. Why would a Christian review a horror movie? Well, before we dive into Scream and all the things that come with it, because there is a seventh one coming out this year, for me, horror films are split into several different categories. You have the slashers, you have kind of your classics, and then you have your paranormal demonic activity. Slashers and your classic monster movies sort of things, those for the most part are okay because they don't deal with anything of the supernatural realm, which for me gives me kind of the heebie-jeebies just a little bit. So, all of that to say, for my convictions, which is the whole point of why this channel exists, you will probably never catch me watching The Exorcist or The Conjuring or any of those films. But a slasher like Scream or a classic Universal monster movie, you may catch me doing those reviews. Just want to put that out there before we get started on this video, because in 1996, Scream came to theaters, directed by Wes Craven, starring Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and Matthew Lillard. This movie is about a serial killer named Ghostface who terrorizes a small town known as Woodsboro, California, and more particularly terrorizes a young girl by the name of Sidney Prescott. So we're going to dive into this movie and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian right now. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. This movie is rated R for strong graphic horror, violence, and gore, as well as some strong language. So we're going to dive into any convictions you may have that may prevent you from watching Scream, any theological themes present within it, and wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on the film. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. If this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, this is a resource to help you figure out whether or not Scream aligns with the convictions that God has given you. And let me just say, there's a good chance this movie may not. It is a horror movie, and I know a lot of people don't really care for horror, myself included, for the most part. So, let's go ahead and dive into our first category. Kicking things off with violence and gore, this is about a serial killer doing a bunch of murders. So there is a lot of death that is already a part of this film, and the method he chooses to terrorize his victims and to take them out is by a knife. Now, obviously, part of it is a parody, so a lot of this is very exaggerated and things of that sort, but it is still a part of the movie, and so that is something to keep in mind. There is a lot of death that happens within this movie, and it also does have a exaggerated amount of gore and blood that is a part of the movie. There is a lot here, so if you're very queasy on blood and that sort of thing, this probably isn't the movie for you to watch. But there is, of course, some gunshots, lots of stab wounds, things of that sort that is a part of the movie, both intentionally, unintentionally, things of that sort. There's a lot that happens within this movie. Either way, strictly because of just the gore on its own, we are going to give this a 5 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is lust, and this one actually surprised me a little bit more. Again, anytime you watch a movie or before you do, I highly suggest taking a look at the IMDB parent guide. I'll have a link down to the one for Scream in the description below, but always make sure to keep an eye out on what is a part of this movie, because there is a lot here in this category in particular. There's a lot of conversations about sex and things of that sort, or talking about Tom Cruise in very suggestive ways, things of that sort that are part of this movie. There is also, of course, a scene of which a couple starts making out, which leads to them taking off clothes. While nothing is explicitly shown on camera, there is a lot of this category, right? A lot of lustful thoughts. This is dealing with, it was a very big part in a 90s culture for some reason. Now that I think about it, it's kind of weird. But in all seriousness, though, there is a lot to this category, and a woman does kind of tease herself to her boyfriend and things of that sort. Other than the making out scene, there's a lot here. We are going to give this a 4 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is substances, and the most we see here is the use of alcohol, which is underage drinking. It is a part of the film. There are many characters who are at a party, and there's alcohol throughout, whether it's a mixed drink or it's beer, things of that sort that are a part of this movie. Because of the fact that it is dealing with underage characters drinking, and some drinking a lot, while there is no explicit drunkenness on screen, it can be kind of interpreted as they're drinking a lot. We are going to give this a 3 out of 5 just to be on the safe side. Our next category is profanity, and there's a decent amount here contained within this movie. Hell is used, the SH word is used, the BI word, the DI word I'm sure is used here, as well as just a plethora of other words are used within this movie. The other thing to note here is there are multiple uses of the F word contained within this movie, so that is something to keep in mind. Because of those uses of the word in particular, we're going to give this a 5 out of 5 in this category. Our last category is intense/horror scenes. This is a horror movie, which means you're going to have the classic horror elements contained within it. Of course, there are lots, and I mean lots of jump scares that are a part of this movie. The whole point is to make you jump. So that is something to keep in mind if you do decide to partake in watching this movie. The other thing to note here is, of course, a lot of the violence and things of that sort that are contained within this movie is pretty scary. It's meant to terrify you. It's meant to be weird and bonkers in like a crazy way, but also at the same time it's meant to be in a scary way as well, if that makes any sort of sense. The other thing to note here, of course, is the fact that just throughout it does have the horror tone, which means on the edge of your seats, like lots of moving around and lots of watching your back, things of that sort. Again, the horror elements that are contained within a classic horror movie. And of course, as I teased just a little bit earlier, the deaths are disturbing in this one, whether it is by stabbing or by garage door. Like, there's a lot here that is meant to disturb, meant to shock. Again, that is the whole point of a horror movie. Some of these are just really weird and outlandish, but that is also part of the point of the Scream franchise because it is a parody. All of that to say, though, we are giving this a 5 out of 5 in this category. There's a lot here. It is a horror film. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be a 22 out of 25. This is pretty high in all the categories here. Of course, the two strongest are going to be its violence and gore and its intense/horror scenes. So it is something to keep in mind. If anything we talked about compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, don't worry about watching Scream. No movie is more important than your relationship with Jesus, so make sure to keep him first in everything we do. And if that means you don't ever have to watch Scream, guess what? You don't ever have to watch Scream. That leads us into our next topic as we dive into some theological themes that are present within Scream. And there are a few things here that I noticed. The biggest one, of course, here being that we live in a broken and fallen world. And anytime you deal with a serial killer or things of that sort, right, it just is a reminder of how broken the world is. That sin, because of the effects of it, really just takes hold in someone's life and causes them to do things that are, in most people's eyes, unexplainable. And so that was a reminder for me in watching this movie. The other thing is, too, is how far and how damaging lust can be. Of course, we did talk about the fact that this movie is pretty lust heavy in some categories, of course, with dealing with just talking about sex and things of that sort. There is an underlying theme which does kind of deal with a little bit of spoilers, but I think this is helpful knowledge of how far and how dangerous lust can be, because one of our characters wants to sleep with his girlfriend, and so it takes him and leads him to do things that are crazy and outlandish. In fact, if anything, it reminds me of the story of David and Bathsheba. David, of course, in his lustful heart, not only slept with Bathsheba, but went so far as to take out her husband, to kill Uriah. And that, of course, shows you how crazy lust can be, and shows you how when we don't do things God's way, when we step out of boundaries, right? Step over boundaries that are put in place for a reason, it causes repercussions, it causes damage. David and his decisions caused a lot of damage, right? And we see that throughout the Old Testament. This movie, we see that once again, something very, very similar. Not exactly, but very similar. And so I found that very interesting, a pretty cool Bible parallel, just warning about the dangers of this thing that is a struggle for a lot of people. So with that being said, it's time to dive into what I think of the movie Scream. And a little fun fact about me, I may be okay with slashers and things of that sort because I watch a lot of like true crime and things of that sort. That's the reason why I was okay with watching Scream. This is, in fact, I believe my first true watch through of a horror movie. So that's fun. In all seriousness though, it is very much a parody on the 80s, 90s slasher, right? Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all of those films, right? Those classic movies of the slasher era of horror. It's very much meant to parody a lot of those things. And it's done quite well in that aspect. I love the idea of them like, hey, we recognize like we're making a movie, but we're going to talk so much movie, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just found it really neat. In that regard, and it has a lot of the tropes of a horror slasher. It has a lot of the cheesiness sometimes of it. There's a few moments where I know it's not meant to make you laugh, but I definitely did. And I think part of it, again, goes back to the fact that it is very much trying to be a parody. And it even does make some references to some classic 80s, 90s slashers, and maybe even name drop some. Heck, I mean, pretty sure if I remember correctly, Halloween was on the TV during one of the moments in the film. So again, it's very much a inspiration or inspired by a lot of those films, which is cool. Speaking of cool, so is our cast. Our cast is overall really, really solid. I love getting to see all of these actors and actresses who I've seen in other projects before, but getting to see them in this one overall was very entertaining and super enjoyable. I really, really dug the cast here, and it helped just to make the story overall better. The story overall is solid. There's nothing crazy or outlandish they really try to do in this film. They're just trying to create some fun with some jump scares and overall just try to make a pretty solid time at the movies. And it does have some solid twists and turns and things overall that were pretty solid and things to kind of like. But I will say this, my one complaint, there's not enough Matthew Lillard.
Inconceivable!
But that's just me, and I really enjoy Matthew Lillard as an actor. But anyways, all of that to say, it was overall enjoyable, and I quite liked it. Actually, more than I thought I would, honestly. And so overall, I'm giving it an 8.1 out of 10. I quite enjoyed it. It was fun. So it's a 22 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It is a 8.1 out of 10 in our review. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Of course, like I said, 80s and 90s slashers are okay from my conviction. If they compromise yours in any way, shape, or form, that's totally okay. We do not have to watch the same movies, and there will be reviews that I do on this channel that maybe other Christians will review, or things of that sort, or other Christians will watch, because they are okay with them, because it doesn't compromise their relationship with Jesus, right? That's the whole point of why this channel exists. And so all of that to say, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to me and to us here on the channel. With that being said, there's a few video recommendations here that YouTube is suggesting to you. I have no idea what they've picked. I hope they did a pretty good job, and we'll see you all in the next one.